one. Well, Bob, I can't tell you how many times I heard this in Australia this year for the Australian Open, which was in January. I must have heard it a dozen times. You can't believe the field in Charleston. You can't believe, I mean, everybody's playing in Charleston. And obviously that had to add, I saw your quote where you used the word devastated about what you had to confront a few weeks ago.
Yeah, it was really tough for us to take, because we had an unbelievable field. I'm really excited about it. It was showing in our ticket numbers. We're way ahead of last year, which were way ahead of the year before. Our sponsors were excited. The city was excited. Our players that we had signed up to in the beginning of the year were playing very well. Sophia Kennan, Ash Barty, we were, beside ourselves with what this field was looking like and what we were building towards.
Yeah. So a lot of us in our world talk about this, but you're the person to ask because you're on the front lines of this as a tournament director running a major tournament. Can, let's say, the Volvo Car Open and the other tournaments like yours that are the spine of the tour, can you survive this?
I think certain events are going to survive. I think the bigger, stronger tournaments that, to your point, that have been around a while are going to be fine. I think some of the smaller tournaments, the internationals on the WTA side and maybe the 250s on the ATP side, their margins are really, really tight. It's really difficult for them. So, I hope that, everyone can survive and move forward. But I think on those events, it's going to be really tough to move forward.
How important is it? Because you have an owner who's a tennis father.
Yeah.
He has an exceptionally talented daughter playing. I mean,
excuse me.
How much of the factor is that to have an owner that would be committed to continue to support something, even through what we're going to go through, some sort of a downturn?
There's no question. It's a huge advantage. Ben is a huge fan of tennis. He's a big believer in sport and what it means to young people and adults. He wants people to be out and active. I can honestly say if we were under our prior ownership, I know I wouldn't be here talking to you right now. Ben wants to keep pushing on and wants us to get better. And, every day we're talking about what's coming and what we can do. And, we're not just looking towards 2021 Volvo Car Open. We're looking at what we can do in the near term. Are there possibilities to bring some things to the forefront for tennis that we can help with? And, I think everyone right now, Ted, has got to think about playing behind closed doors and without fans for the near term. So how do we do that? And if we can help, we're going to be here to help.
That's great. I'll get to that in a second, but I inferred a little something. Is there a chance of doing something in 2020 still?
Yeah, I think there's, we're looking at calendars. Steve Simon is constantly looking at the calendar and where things can fit, where things can make sense. And, we're always going to look at opportunities. So yes, I would say in 2020, you may see something from us here in Charleston.
Yeah. You made a great point there. So you're obviously a WTA, you have a sanction of the WTA tour to run a tournament. How much involvement is there with Steve Simon with the WTA right now to your level running this tournament in Charleston?
Weekly, I have probably 3 calls weekly that include Steve. From a tournament council perspective, from the Americas, Steve is unbelievably good about keeping people informed. And, he is working 24/7, and I give him all the credit in the world because I don't know how he does it. Because I know he's on California. We have 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock calls in the morning. He's on it and leading the way, ready to go. But very involved in all the discussions. He's really trying to figure out what's coming next, which is really difficult right now because we all don't know. So we're all looking at, iterations of 14, 15 different potential calendars moving forward.
I've been fascinated, Bob. You probably have, coming from your viewpoint here, that the players have gotten together to announce there was going to be a trickle down, in essence, help, that the top were going to help the underside of the professional tour, at least try to survive this. Does that apply? Can that apply to the tournaments?
I think we're all always looking about how we can help each other. An easy question to that is like our TV pool. We all pool our rights together to sell our international broadcast rights as one unit. And we have to make some decisions on, do we, the events that didn't have any TV, do we help out as a pool? Or are the events that already occurred and had their TV and did their allotment, do they get their full share? I mean, those are things we're talking about. How do we help each other? How do we look out for each other? Because it's not easy, both on the player side and the tournament side.
Yeah. So let's go back now to the closed door uh, component you just talked about. Um, I'm fascinated because obviously being around and seeing your event, which has been run so well, how hard is it to survive if you don't have the personal interaction, the meet and greets, and all the other things, hit and giggles that your fans love, that your sponsors love, if you have to try to play something at least for a year without that?
It's very difficult. Our business model, excuse me, is built on ticket sales and sponsorship sales. Ticket sales is number one, and then sponsorship sales is number two. And sponsorship sales largely revolves around those experiences you can create for your clients that they can't get anywhere else. And that's very unique to tennis and golf, between pro-ams on the golf side and the tennis side, clinics on the tennis side, meet and greets in the sponsor boxes, things like that. Those are the things that drive sponsorship dollars. So that's a very difficult business model to do in these circumstances. So we're having to look at what's different. And, we have to look at, behind closed doors means, are we creating content opportunities that are more like this, unfortunately, but we have to look at everything and see how we come out on the other side. I'm hoping that this is a short-term issue and that we can get back to the norm. That's what we're all hoping for. But we also have to make sure we're paying attention to what's right in front of us and doing what we can to find solutions.
And that's great, Bob, because I'm sitting there as you're saying that thinking, can you sell futures on that? Can you say, all right, if you commit, we'll do 3 for 2. And the first year is not going to be what we want it to be, but we promise you the next 2 are going to be extra special.
Yeah, that's absolutely going through my mind right now with long-term partnerships that we have. And you have to continue to have those conversations with your partners to let them know that we intend on coming out of here. How we're going to come out of this issue, out of this pandemic, we don't know yet, but I can guarantee you we're going to do everything we can to make it a great experience, hoping to go back to that world-class experience we had in years past.
Yeah. And so the closed door component also comes into view because we were just both reading this morning. Mike Dowse, the USTA, talked to Bill Simons of Inside Tennis and pretty openly said, look, the US Open, they're, and this is paraphrasing now, but they're intense to play. Closed doors is a very real thing. Even the concept of potentially moving the US Open for a year to Indian Wells is still at least on the table. Is all of that ring, in your conversations from your end, is all that ring true?
No, absolutely. You and I chatted at another time about, I believe it was Tim Henman was saying there's 5,000 people that would be on site just to operate an event. And, it got me thinking when you talked about it, and I started doing numbers, and obviously our event's not like that. But with the US Open, you're talking there's at least 450 competitors, just competitors. Mm-hmm. Now take that plus one, because everyone's going to have a plus one. Normally they have plus 3 or 4, but I think there's going to have to be a limit on the support staffs and things like that. So you're talking 1,000 people just with players and one support staff alone, let alone TV and let alone everything else that needs to go on to operate an event. So there are a lot of people involved in running. You're going to have to create a bubble around whatever event you're doing. No matter who it is, a bubble that you're really controlling everything and interaction the best you can, from food service to hotels to all of those things. You want to make sure you've got your hands around that. You can't operate behind closed doors and just once the tennis is over, not worry about them. Where are they going? What are they doing? Where are they eating? Where are they shopping? You have to worry about it. That's the new norm right now until we can figure this out.
And for anyone that may not be aware, what Bob's referencing, Tim Henman, who's on the board of the All England Club that runs Wimbledon, made this comment a couple of weeks ago that their studies indicated 5,000 people were needed on site to run their entire championships. And of course, that goes, as Bob said, from competitors and their teams through umpires, through administrators, through caterers to feed the players, and of course, all the maintenance to keep the grass courts. So scope that down to, let's say, the Volvo Car Open. Bob, do you have a ballpark figure on what you would need to run a closed door event?
I would be in the 100 world.
Yeah.
Because I got thinking hard about that and doing the math after we talked. And I also think the world we're going to be looking at, Ted, is maybe reduced draw sizes. Maybe not doing, for us, it's a 56 draw. Maybe we're going back to a 32. We have to take everything into consideration to control the world we can. I'm talking behind closed doors. that might be, something we look at, 32 or 16 or something to that effect.
So tennis has the clear hurdle, biggest hurdle, I think, in any sport because of its totally global nature. Every continent on the planet's represented. Golf has the PGA Tour, which is largely North American. Could something like that translate, at least in the short term, Bob, do you think, to tennis?
I think we're going to have to look at regionalization. I've been really paying attention to the PGA Tour side of things, and I think the number I heard last, Ed, was I believe out of their 175 full members, 20 or 25 were from overseas. But I am also assuming most of those players have residences in Florida, California, Arizona. And then you look at just the WTA Tour. In the United States, we have 19 players, 19% are Americans. And that's the highest percentage of any other country. They're in the top 100. 19% are U.S. players. So you can't operate a tour if players can't get here. You can't. So what do we have to look at? Do we look at regionalization? Do we look at Europe as a region? Do we look at Asia as a region? Do we look at the U.S. or North America or the Americas as a region, and being able to play some in that world? I think you have to think about it. Just because it's tennis, to your point, is such an international event that travel restrictions are going to be the biggest hurdle that we all have to get over.
Yeah. And I, as you lay that out, Bob, I sit here being someone on the outside from the business world of it. And I think, is that maybe going to be a long-term play, given where we go as a world, that, maybe this isn't the worst thing in the world if tennis becomes a little more regional. And yeah, the world meets 4 times a year for the majors and then 5 other times of the year for whatever the combo major events are. Is that a crazy thought?
It's not. I don't think there are any crazy thoughts right now. There are definitely no crazy thoughts, because we all have to come out on the other side of this with a game plan. So there's no questions that are out of bounds right now. No ideas that are out of bounds right now.
Yeah. How's Charleston doing?
Charleston, as I was talking when we first got on, our tennis court has been getting ready. We're about to open tomorrow. So the private side of things, golf and tennis, have been open for a while. But the public, like us, we're a public facility. We've been closed with the governor's shutdown and the mayor's shutdown. But that is starting to loosen, where public parks, including tennis facilities, are opening tomorrow. So I'd say the weather's been unbelievable. People are out biking and riding their bikes, walking, playing golf. So it's definitely different than other parts of the country, because I have a lot of friends and family in New York who I hear the nightmares about being in New York. So I hate to see that for different parts of the country. But we here in Charleston are hanging in there okay.
You feeling a little better vibe, in other words. That's why, being in California, we're going through not quite New York, but a lot of the same restrictions. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I think we're a little looser than most parts of the country right now.
Yeah. Have you had much feedback from players?
Yeah, I've been talking to a lot of the players. Yes. And I think Steve, again, back to Steve Simon's been doing a great job of educating the players. As much as he's having calls with us, he's having calls with the player council and the players as a whole, just really walking them through what this potentially new world could look like. And, I, myself and Gavin Ziv from Tennis Canada sat on a call with the player council just to walk them through our business model. And for me, I was canceled. And I told them how much that hurt us and what it meant to us financially. And then Gavin Ziv was talking about, what's potentially going to happen to Tennis Canada if both Toronto and Montreal go under or are canceled, and what happens there. So it was a strong opportunity for us to just let the players know, we understand the hardships you're going through, and we're going to try and help any way we can. But please understand the tournaments are having those hardships as well. And it was a good thing for us to all talk and understand each other's lives and business models.
Yeah. And that's obviously, I've been asking you about the business side. So from the players' feedback, do you get any idea of what kind of ramp up time would be sensible?
I think it's all different. I have had conversations. I can tell you, I talked to a couple for here. We have a couple of players who are in the greater Charleston area training. They can get out anytime and train as much as they want and play as much as they want. And they're getting some match play in. But you talk to a couple of players in Florida where there were no courts open. Talked to a couple of players who said they may have played twice since Australia. So the time of comeback for players is going to be very, very different as well. And then, listening to Christiane on Tennis Channel a couple times, I don't think she's been able to get out of her house. And if she does, it's really not to do anything but maybe walk or run, let alone getting a racket in her hand and hitting with anybody. So, just like we're talking about, each state is different. Cities are different, and where players are located right now, it's all different. So I think the ramp up is going to be different for players as we come out of this as well.
Rafa Nadal did a social media live with Federer, and I watched this the other night, and Rafa said he hadn't hit a ball since Indian Wells. And that's, in the tennis world where it is almost, it's at least 11 months for most players, right?
Yeah.
That's hard to think. That's 6 weeks without hitting a ball.
Yeah. It's unbelievable.
Crazy. What, so is Fig open for takeout, Bob?
Takeout, Fig and Halls. I can game a couple that are open for takeout, Ted. You need anything, let me know. I'll get it to you somehow.
As we laugh, because we've become, Bob Moran, the Volvo Car Open is an extraordinary event. The city of Charleston, the people of Charleston, the people of your group of the Volvo Car Open could not be greater hosts, more gracious people to for when I first came a few years ago, a city I wasn't terribly familiar with. And now I feel like I can't wait to come back.
Well, we can't wait to have you back. That's for sure. And we did. Ted, I told you, that last little shindig we threw for Tennis Channel talent when you came with a traditional Southern porch party. We had an even bigger and better one planned for you this year, and I can't tell you what it was because we are going to duplicate it next year. But we're gonna throw you a little party when you guys get here next year.
Good. So last one. I mean, we're talking on April 30. Obviously, there's no definites in any way in this world right now. But any sense of a timetable that you're aware of in the conversations?
I think what you're seeing right now is you're seeing some one-offs. In Germany and in Spain. I think you're going to see some stuff in the States here soon of some exhibitions and one-offs. And those will come before the tour. Right now, there's not going to be anything until end of July, early August. We know that. Yeah. Both tours are off the table until then. So that is a lot of time. So I think you'll see some smaller stuff coming about in the coming weeks in May, a little bit more probably in June. And then I would say first week in June or second week in June, the U.S. Open is going to make their decision on whether they are moving forward or not, which I think will affect the rest of the summer series as well.
Right. Well, I hope I get to Charleston, Bob, and I hope it's sooner than next April.
I'm with you. You come see us anytime, Ted.
Good luck. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Ted. Appreciate it.